Lord. All right, so we're going to continue in Job 9 now. So we just went over Bildad and his kind of railing on Job and his accusations. Chapter 9 starts Job's response to this, and I think it's pretty interesting. So Bildad's entire argument was based off of that you can't really stand righteous before God. And Job's initial response here in chapter 9 is that Bildad's right. Bildad's absolutely right. But that's not, Job is claiming that's not really, doesn't apply as much to him. And so the first thing that he's going to point out here okay, it's not switching the slides right now. So you'll just have to turn there. Verses 1 to 13 in Job 9. Okay. And Job's initial response basically is that there's no one righteous, right? You're absolutely right. There is none righteous. Nobody can stand before God and be righteous before God. And so starting verse 1 here, and I think this might load, it says, Job answered and said, "Truly I know it is so." So after all of Bildad's accusations and how really frank and rude Bildad is, Job's response initially is, "I know it is so." Then it says, "But how can man be righteous before God?" So you can't, right? "If one wished to contend with him, he could not answer him one time out of 1,000. God is wise in heart and mighty in strength. Who has hardened himself against him and prospered? He removes mountains, and they do not know when he overturns them in his anger." So he's talking about God's power here. When it talks about God's anger and things like that, it's not accusing God of wrongdoing, okay? It's important to understand Job throughout this, even when he uses the word wrong, it translates different into English than what it means in Hebrew. But he is not accusing God of evil doing here. So overturns them in his anger. He shakes the earth out of its place, and its pillars tremble. He commands the sun, and it does not rise. He seals off the stars. Stopping just for a moment, something that I just remembered. I want to point out, and I'm going to remind us all of this as we go through this. Job does commit a sin throughout his arguing. He didn't commit a sin that brought on his, suffering, but throughout his arguing with God, he does commit a sin. And that's explained much later when, I forget what the fourth friend's name is right now, but when this fourth friend comes about, he points it out. And Job's sin is his self-righteousness. And so really, and this gets pointed out much later, Job throughout this, and you'll notice this, he's saying, "I'm just, I'm good, instead of relying on God's goodness. So instead of saying, "Well, God, you are good," Job is saying, "I am good, therefore none of this should happen." So really, Job is just as wrong as his friends. Okay? And so I just want to point that out, and I'll probably have to point it out again because this is pretty long. But throughout all these arguments, just remember that, okay? That Job is increasingly getting indignant and self-righteous throughout all of these, okay? And so verse 8 here, it says, "He alone spreads the heavens and treads on the waves of the sea. He made the bear, Orion," these are talking about constellations, okay? "And the Pleiades." Okay, so something interesting about this. So Arcturus is the name of that constellation. It had a different name in Hebrew, but it was basically, they all knew it as a bear. Orion is kind of an interesting one. This constellation was not called Orion by the Hebrews. Okay, it was called Nimrod. And so Nimrod, if you think about, you remember Nimrod from Genesis. He's the one that was the mighty hunter, right? The Jews also called this constellation the Fool. Okay, so it's kind of interesting. Orion is a Greek name for the constellation. Well, Greece didn't exist yet, so this is Nimrod here. So then it says, in the chambers of the south, he does great things past finding out. Yes, wonders without number. He's talking about how great God is and how can anyone stand righteous before him, right? Then it says here, if he goes by me, I do not see him. If he moves past, I do not perceive him. So you can't see God if he were literally see him if he's standing next to you. Okay. If he takes away, who can hinder him? You can't stop God from doing whatever he wants to do. Who can say to him, what are you doing? God will not withdraw his anger. The allies of the proud lie prostrate beneath him. So think about being proud. You stand up tall and proud. Versus, so the people that are like that, what are they doing before God? They're lying prostrate with their face to the ground. Okay? So no matter how great you might think you are here, no matter what, God is above you and you can't stand righteous before God. Okay? So Job's response here is that you're right, Bildad. I'm not righteous in the same way that no one is righteous. Okay? But Job's argument is that he hasn't done anything specifically wrong to earn God's anger. And so he's saying everyone's bad, but I'm no worse than anyone else. So basically, you all should be suffering exactly the same way I am if your argument's correct, is what Job is saying. So he continues on this. And basically, now he's going to talk about you can't reason with God. So that's this next paragraph. If you try to reason with God, if you try to plead your case before God, you think about this, right? If we die, right, and we say, God, we deserve to go to heaven because of this, this, and this, and this, and this, right? If you have all these other reasons why you were a good person and you stand before God, if that's your reason for getting into heaven, are you going to go to heaven? No. But if you stand before God and you say, God, I should be in heaven because I've accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. That's the only reason why you get into heaven. You can't stand before God and plead your case and try to appear righteous. So if you do that, it will only prove your unrighteousness, which is what Job is going to say here in verses 14 through 20. And I know the slides aren't working tonight. Oh, well. So Job 9:14 through 20 says, how then can I answer him? So no one's righteous, right? How then can I answer him and choose my words to reason with him? For though I were righteous in his sight, right? If I didn't do anything wrong, I would beg mercy of my judge. If I called and he answered me, I would not believe that he was listening to my voice. For he crushes me with a tempest and multiplies my wounds without cause. And so this is kind of interesting, right? So he thinks God's anger is turned on him for no specific reason, right? So this is Job's error here. Then it says here, by the way, Job, again, is not accusing God of wrongdoing. He's saying that God is harming him and he doesn't think he's done anything wrong, right? So he's going to actually continue with this. He says, he will not allow me to catch my breath, but fills me with bitterness. If it is a matter of strength, indeed he is strong. And if of justice, who will appoint my day in court? So think about this. He's pleading his case before the righteous judge. God is absolutely perfect, right? What hope do you have to stand before him and plead your case? It says, though I were righteous. What Job is saying here is he's comparing his righteousness to other people's, right? He's basically saying, I'm more righteous than you. He says, my own mouth, so though I were righteous, my own mouth would condemn me. So if I stand before God and make a case for my righteousness, what does that do? Your own mouth would condemn you. It says, though I were blameless, it would prove me perverse. So if you were to stand before God and try to plead your righteousness before him, God knows every single thing about you. You don't think he knows that you did something wrong? You can't prove you are righteous before God. And so, after all this, yet Job does not understand the cause of his suffering. And these verses here, verses 21 to 24, are really deep, and it covers a lot of stuff. And it amazes me how much Job understands, yet doesn't understand. Right? We can actually learn, because the things that Job doesn't understand are things that we can't really understand about God. We have to understand that we don't understand everything. That's kind of the point of Job. But Job has a very deep understanding of a lot of things. And so, and we'll see that throughout these scriptures. But now Job is getting self-righteous here. I am blameless, yet I do not know myself. I despise my life. So I can't reconcile these things, right? I'm blameless. I don't think I've done anything wrong, yet I'm receiving all of this suffering right now. I don't know why. I despise my life. This is the one thing that Job does know for sure, right? It says, it is all one thing. So this one thing I know, right? Therefore I say, he destroys the blameless and the wicked. And so what he's saying here is that his friends, these three friends that are with him, are wicked, right? Because they prove it more and more that they are wicked. And Job sees himself as blameless. And so what he's saying is his suffering is not a result of whether or not he committed some terrible sin. That's the point that he is driving home. Really, this verse here is kind of, again, wraps up Job's whole argument here. His suffering has nothing to do with whether or not he sinned, because God makes it rain on the just and the unjust, right? And so, which is funny because I always thought of that verse as like the rain being a bad thing, but it was actually a good thing in the context. So, but it's the same thing. There's suffering for people that are just. There's also suffering for people that are unjust. There's blessings for people that are just, but also it seems that people that are unjust seem to prosper at times too. And so this cannot be a result of something that he did, right? And so he continues here. If the scourge slays suddenly, he laughs at the plight of the innocent. That one caught me off guard there because it seems like Job is saying God is laughing at people that suffer. What it means there, though, the Hebrew word means like disregards. So God doesn't really think anything of it. It's not big in the grand scheme of things. You get the sense that Job's in his arguing here, he sees people as, or he comes to Job's view is that God sees people as insignificant. Okay? And so that's what the kind of Job is saying here, that we must be all just so insignificant. So that's what he's saying. God, he laughs at, so the scourge slays suddenly. He laughs at the plight of the innocent. Then it says, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. And so the wicked there, it could mean the wicked one, but in this sense, he's probably talking about wicked people. And so he's talking about wicked people prospering. And so you can't make the argument that the suffering is a result of something that he did wrong. Then it says he covers the faces of the judges. And then he wraps this part of his argument up. If it is not if it is not he, who else could it be? So if God is not the one causing this suffering, if God is not the one causing this suffering, if God is not the one causing the wicked to prosper, who else could it be? And so, again, he's making an argument based off of a bad premise. He's saying, God's really, God is arbitrarily choosing these things. And so, again, this is someone who's in the midst of suffering. These people, Job's friends and Job, are arguing back and forth, and they are both wrong about God. We have to remember that throughout all of this. We can get some nuggets of truth here because they're both obviously fairly educated in God's ways, but they both misunderstand the character of God here. And so, and that will get pointed out later by that fourth friend. That fourth friend is going to set them both straight. And so we continue here. Job, in verses 25 through 31, he's basically going to say, there's no way out. There's no way out for me. He says here, starting verse 25, he says, now my days are swifter than a runner. They flee away. They see no good. So my days are quick and terrible. Okay, it just keeps going by. All this time's going by, and it's a terrible life. It says, they pass by like swift ships, like an eagle swooping on its prey. If I say, now remember what Bildad was kind of saying is that he shouldn't have this attitude. He shouldn't be complaining to God about these things, that's the sin, right? Bildad thinks that Job's sin is that he's complaining, okay? When in reality, Job's sin is that he's being self-righteous in these situations. But it says, if I say, I will forget my complaint, I will put off my sad face and wear a smile. So even in the midst of all this suffering, if I say, okay, I'm going to stop complaining, I'm going to put on a happy face, and everything's all good, right? Is that the right thing to do? Probably not. But that's what Bildad is saying that he should do, right? And then it says, I'm afraid of all my sufferings. I know that you will not hold me innocent. So if I act like nothing's wrong, God, I'm not going to be held innocent before God because one, I'm lying, right? And so what should he do? And then he goes to the opposite. If I am condemned, so if it is punishment, why am I still here? Why has not God cut me off already? Right? So if I'm condemned, why then do I labor in vain? So why am I doing any of this? Right? And then it says, if I wash myself with snow water and cleanse my hands with soap, yet you will plunge me into the pit, and my own clothes will abhor me. And so if I try to act like nothing's wrong, if I do these ritual cleansings, is what he's talking about, he says God's just going to put me right back into this pit because I don't know what he's judging me based off of right now. So Job is saying, there's no way out for me. If I do one way, I'm going to be in trouble. If I go the other way, I'm in trouble. There's no way out. And so he's saying really to build it, what is it really I should do, right? If your argument is correct, what should I do? If this is because of my sin and I don't know what it is, how can I get out of it? Then he says something really amazing and prophetic. This is a very deep part of this. The conclusion that Job comes to matters. We think about, we just went through the book of Hebrews. What is one of the big points of the book of Hebrews? That Jesus is the mediator, right? So Job points out something here that, he's like, I have no mediator. This is the problem, why I can't just talk to God like you are saying. He says, I have no mediator. So verse 32, it says, for he is not a man as I am, that I may answer him, that we should go to court together. So God's not a man that I am. So Job is very fearful of God. And later, when we get to that fourth friend, this is one of the things that fourth friend is going to point out. That fourth friend is a picture of Jesus. So he's a type of Christ in this situation. He is going to act as the mediator here. But he's talking about, okay, I need someone that is flesh and blood. I can't just talk to God because God's not a man like I am. What was one of the things that was amazing about Jesus? He came in human flesh, right? He understands us. And so at Job's time, this didn't exist yet. And so then it says here, nor is there a mediator between us. So there's no go-between between me and the Father is what he's saying, okay? Who may lay his hand on us both. And so he has no one to stand between him and God to argue his case, right? Then he says, let him take his rod. Oh, now he's going to plead, all right, to God. It says, let him take his rod away from me, and do not let dread of him terrify me. Again, pay attention. You might want to mark this verses 32 to 35 for later, because this is going to be a big part of that introduction to that fourth friend. Fourth friend's going to be like, I am this person, right? And let him take away his rod from me, and do not let the dread of him terrify me. Then I would speak and not fear him. But it is not so with me. And so Job's whole thing, the thing that he is, the conclusion that he has come to, the reason why he can't just plead his case is that there's no mediator. There's no mediator there, which again is very prophetic and awesome when you think about the coming Christ. So in this oldest book of the Bible, the focus is still on Jesus. So even when they would come and bring the law, so even when the law of Moses came about in the book of Leviticus, why did they have the high priest? Just to be the mediator, right? They needed someone to go between them and God. And the mediator had to do all of these washings and everything. The high priest had to do all these washings. And then later, it's Jesus. So you have nothing, then you have an imperfect thing, and then you have the perfect thing. And so, pretty awesome here. Are there any thoughts or questions on that? Hold on just a second. Let me stop the recording.